Lily worked in a small diner on the edge of town. The place was not fancy, and the smell of fried food mixed with strong coffee filled the air all day. But it was cozy, and most of the customers were regulars who came for breakfast, lunch, or a chat over a cup of coffee. Lily had been working there for almost 3 years, ever since she had finished school. She didn't have much, but she had a heart full of kindness and a sense of responsibility that made her stand out. Life was not easy for her. She lived in a tiny apartment with her younger brother. Their mother had passed away a few years ago, leaving them to manage on their own. Her father had disappeared from their lives even earlier, leaving only distant memories and unanswered questions. Lily's days were long and her nights were short. She woke up early every morning, went to work, came home late, helped her brother with homework, and then barely had time to rest before starting all over again. Despite all this, she never complained. She had learned that life was hard, and sometimes all a person could do was keep going and try to do small good things whenever possible. One cold, rainy afternoon, the diner was quieter than usual. Only a few customers were scattered around the tables, some sipping coffee and watching the rain slide down the windows. Lily was cleaning the tables, humming softly under her breath, when she noticed a small boy standing near the entrance. He looked to be about 10 years old. His clothes were neat, almost too neat, and his shoes were clean and polished. But there was something in his eyes that made Lily pause. He looked lonely. There was no one with him, and he seemed unsure of what to do. He shuffled his feet nervously, glancing around the diner as if he had never been there before. Lily walked over with a warm smile. "Hi there," she said gently. "Would you like to sit down?" The boy looked up at her. His eyes were wide, and there was a hint of fear mixed with sadness. He nodded slowly and walked over to an empty table near the window. Lily followed him, carrying a small tray. "What's your name?" she asked as she placed a glass of water in front of him. "Ethan," he said softly. "Well, Ethan," Lily said kindly, "I'm Lily. If you need anything, just let me know, okay?" Ethan nodded again but didn't say much more. He picked up a menu but didn't seem interested in it. Lily watched him for a moment, noticing the way his small hands clutched the menu almost like it was a shield. She could sense that he wasn't just hungry for food, he seemed hungry for attention. For someone to notice him, Lily returned to the counter, but her eyes kept drifting back to Ethan. She wanted to help him, but she also didn't want to push too hard. She went back after a few minutes with a small plate of cookies that the cook had just finished baking. "These are fresh," she said, placing the plate in front of him. "I thought you might like one." Ethan's eyes lit up slightly. He picked up a cookie and took a careful bite, as if he wasn't used to anyone giving him something for free. Lily smiled and walked back to her station, keeping an eye on him while serving other customers. Over the next few days, Ethan returned to the diner. Lily began to notice patterns. He always came alone, always sat at the same table by the window, and always seemed quiet and withdrawn. He didn't talk much, but Lily made small efforts to connect. She would ask him simple questions about school or what he liked to eat, and she always made sure he had a little extra treat. One rainy afternoon, the diner was nearly empty. The soft sound of rain hitting the windows filled the room. Lily noticed Ethan sitting alone, staring out the window. She brought over a cup of hot chocolate and a small slice of pie. "I thought you might like something warm," she said softly. Ethan looked up at her, and for the first time, she saw a small smile. It was fleeting, almost shy, but it was there. "Thank you," he whispered. "You're welcome," Lily said gently. "You don't have to sit alone if you don't want to. You can sit here and talk to me if you like." Ethan hesitated, then nodded slowly. He seemed to relax a little as he ate the pie. Lily watched him and realized that sometimes a simple act of kindness could mean more than words. Life at the diner continued in this way for several weeks. Lily and Ethan developed a quiet routine. She would make sure he had his favorite snacks and a warm drink, and he would gradually open up in small ways. He told her about little things that happened at school, about how he liked to read, and about the games he played in the park. Lily listened patiently, offering encouragement and support. One afternoon, Ethan asked a question that made Lily pause. "Why do you care about me?" he asked quietly. Lily smiled softly. "Because everyone deserves to be cared for, Ethan," she said. "No one should feel lonely or left out. And besides, I like seeing you smile." Ethan looked down at his hands and then back at her. There was a hint of wonder in his eyes, as if he had never heard anyone say something like that before. Lily didn't know much about Ethan's family. He never mentioned his parents, and she never asked. She believed that sometimes children had their own reasons for keeping things private, and she respected that. All she knew was that he needed someone to care, and she could do that. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Lily continued to help Ethan whenever she could. She made sure he always had a warm meal, a friendly smile, and someone to talk to when he needed it. The bond between them grew stronger. Even though it was quiet and gentle, it wasn't dramatic or flashy. It was simple and real. The townspeople began to notice the connection between Lily and Ethan. Some would comment on how patient she was, how she always found a way to make the boy feel comfortable. Others whispered that Ethan's father must be wealthy, because the boy's clothes were always clean and well made. Lily didn't pay attention to the gossip. She didn't care about money or status. She cared about the child in front of her and making sure he felt safe and seen. One evening, after the diner had closed and the rain had stopped, Lily found herself cleaning the tables and thinking about how much she had grown attached to Ethan. She realized that helping him had become a part of her life. She didn't see it as work or obligation. It was simply kindness, and it made her feel alive in a way nothing else did. Ethan, on his part, had started to trust Lily completely. He shared his little joys, his fears, and even some of his dreams. He would talk about the books he liked, the games he wanted to play, and sometimes he would simply sit quietly while Lily worked, enjoying her presence. Lily had no idea that her simple acts of care and attention were making a huge difference in his life. She didn't know that behind the quiet boy in front of her was a child who had everything in terms of material wealth, but had almost no emotional connection. She didn't know that her warmth and empathy were the first real sources of comfort he had experienced in a long time. That evening, as Lily switched off the lights and locked the diner doors, she thought about Ethan and smiled softly. She had no idea what the future held, but she knew that as long as she could, she would continue to be there for him. She would continue to show him kindness, to listen to him, and to let him know that someone cared. And in that small, quiet way, a deep and lasting bond was forming, one that would eventually change both of their lives forever. Days passed, and the small bond between Lily and Ethan quietly grew stronger. It was the kind of connection that didn't need many words but was built on little gestures and shared moments. Every time Ethan entered the diner, Lily noticed him immediately. She had begun to recognize the subtle changes in his mood, the way he sometimes looked sad or distracted, or how a small smile could appear on his face when he felt a tiny spark of happiness. One afternoon, the diner was busy. The lunch rush had started, and the small place was filled with the chatter of regular customers and the clinking of dishes. Lily moved quickly between tables, balancing plates and refilling drinks. Her eyes, however, kept flicking toward Ethan, who was sitting quietly at his usual table by the window. He wasn't reading today, nor was he looking out at the street. He simply sat there, his hands folded neatly on the table, his face calm but distant. Lily carried over a small bowl of soup she had prepared with extra care. She placed it gently in front of him. "I thought you might like this," she said softly, smiling. Ethan looked up at her. His lips curved in a tiny smile, almost shyly. "Thank you," he whispered. "You're welcome," Lily replied, her voice warm. "How was school today?" Ethan hesitated, then shrugged. "Okay," he said. I had a hard time with math." Lily nodded. "Math can be tricky sometimes. Do you want me to help you after you eat?" Ethan's eyes brightened slightly. "Would you, really?" he asked. "Of course," she said. "I'm happy to help." It was a small moment, but it meant a lot to both of them. Lily knew that offering attention, patience, and understanding could sometimes do more than expensive gifts or fancy toys. Ethan needed someone who cared about him, not someone who just provided for him. Over the next few weeks, their routine continued. Lily would check on Ethan, make sure he had a warm meal, and spend a little time helping him with homework. She didn't mind the extra work. She actually enjoyed it. The joy on Ethan's face when he finally understood a difficult problem, or when he laughed at a small joke, made her day brighter than anything else could. But there was more to Ethan than met the eye. Lily noticed small things that didn't quite fit the life of a typical kid from their town. His clothes were always neat and in good condition. He never seemed to need anything, yet he didn't flaunt wealth either. He carried himself with a quiet confidence. a sense of careful observation, as if he were always thinking, always watching. One evening, after the diner had quieted down, Lily was wiping down tables when Ethan came up to her. He held something in his hand, a small, shiny object that reflected the light of the diner lamps. "I found this," he said softly, holding it out to her. "I dropped it yesterday." Lily took it and examined it. It was a gold bracelet, delicate and expensive looking. She blinked, surprised. "This is very nice," she said gently. "Did it belong to you?" Ethan nodded. "Yes. It's from my dad." Lily's curiosity rose, but she didn't ask too much. She didn't want to make him uncomfortable. Instead, she returned the bracelet to him carefully. "Take good care of it," she said kindly. That small moment made Lily think. Ethan had things that most kids could only dream of, yet he seemed so lonely, so in need of simple human connection. She realized that sometimes wealth and material things couldn't replace the comfort of someone truly caring about you. One rainy morning, the diner was nearly empty. Lily had just finished wiping down the tables when Ethan walked in, holding an umbrella and shaking off the raindrops from his coat. He looked a little more cheerful today, and his eyes met Lily's with a small, genuine smile. "I brought you this," he said, holding out a small drawing he had made. Lily took it carefully. It was a picture of the diner, drawn with care and attention to detail. In the corner, he had written her name in neat letters. She felt her heart swell. "This is beautiful, Ethan," she said softly. "Thank you for sharing it with me." Ethan shrugged, looking slightly embarrassed, but there was pride in his eyes. "I wanted you to have it," he said. "You've made my day," Lily replied, smiling warmly. "You're very thoughtful." It was moments like these that reminded Lily why she had started caring for Ethan in the first place. She didn't do it for praise or reward. She did it because it felt right. Because she knew that kindness, even in the smallest gestures, could create a difference that money could never buy. As days turned into weeks, Lily and Ethan's bond deepened. He started to trust her more openly, sharing small stories about school, his favorite books, and things he dreamed about. He spoke about wanting friends, about feeling lonely sometimes, and about how much he liked the simple things in life, like drawing, reading, or just sitting quietly in a cozy place. Lily listened patiently, never judging, never interrupting. She offered advice when needed, comfort when he was sad, and always a small gesture of warmth. She gave him cookies, warm drinks, and sometimes extra help with homework. In return, Ethan gave her laughter, small smiles, and moments of genuine happiness that filled her heart in ways she had never expected. But even as their bond grew stronger, Lily remained unaware of the full truth about Ethan's life. She didn't know who his father was, nor did she think much about it. To her, he was just a lonely boy who needed care and attention, and she was happy to give it. She never asked about money, wealth, or his family, and Ethan never volunteered that information. Still, there were subtle signs. Ethan's knowledge of the world, his polite manners, and the small luxuries in his life hinted at something different. His school supplies were always perfect, his clothes never worn out, and he had a quiet confidence that didn't come from typical childhood experiences. Lily noticed these things but didn't dwell on them. They didn't matter to her. What mattered was that he had someone who cared about him, and that was enough. One afternoon, a regular customer, an older man who often came for coffee, commented quietly to Lily, "You know, that boy's father must be quite wealthy. You notice the way he dresses, the things he carries. It's not something you see in our town often." Lily smiled politely but didn't respond. She didn't care about the boy's father or his wealth. To her, Ethan was a child who needed kindness, and she was determined to give it. That evening, as Lily closed up the diner, she found Ethan waiting outside, holding his backpack. The rain had stopped and the street was shiny with reflections from the streetlights. "Are you heading home?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "Yeah. Thanks for today," he said softly. "You're welcome," Lily replied, smiling warmly. "Remember, you can always come here if you need someone to talk to." Ethan hesitated, then nodded again. "I will," he said. "I like being here." Lily's heart felt full. She realized that even small gestures, like offering a warm meal, a listening ear, or a friendly smile, could make a huge difference in someone's life. She didn't know it yet, but her kindness was slowly filling a gap in Ethan's world, a gap that no amount of wealth or luxury could ever fill. Over time, Lily noticed subtle changes in Ethan. He started to smile more, laugh occasionally, and even join in small conversations with other kids at school. The boy who had once been lonely and withdrawn was beginning to open up, thanks to the gentle, steady care of a waitress who saw him not as a rich kid or a problem, but as a child in need of warmth. It wasn't a sudden transformation. It was slow, gradual, and natural, and it was real. One quiet afternoon, Lily sat at the counter, sipping her coffee and thinking about how much she had grown attached to Ethan. She realized that she looked forward to seeing him every day, not out of obligation but out of genuine care. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that she wanted to continue being a part of his life, in any way she could. Little did she know her small acts of kindness, patience, and attention were creating a bond that would eventually change both of their lives forever. The weeks continued, and the small bond between Lily and Ethan grew quietly but steadily. The diner had become a special place for the boy, a place where he felt safe and cared for. Lily had become more than just a waitress to him. She was a friend, a guide, and someone who noticed him in a way no one else did. One afternoon, Lily was cleaning tables when Ethan walked in, carrying a small leather backpack. He looked a little nervous, as if he was holding something important. He walked to his usual table, and Lily immediately noticed a faint crease of worry on his forehead. "Hi, Ethan," she said softly, smiling. "How was school today?" Ethan shrugged but didn't answer. Instead, he opened his backpack and carefully took out a small golden watch. It was delicate and clearly expensive. He placed it on the table, looking at it as if it were both precious and fragile. Lily's eyes widened. She hadn't expected him to bring something like this. "This is beautiful," she said gently. "Is it yours?" Ethan nodded slowly. I dropped it yesterday," he said quietly. "I didn't want to lose it." Lily leaned closer. "You take really good care of it," she said. "It looks very special." Ethan looked down at his hands, twisting the watch nervously. "It's from my dad," he said softly. "He gave it to me, but I don't see him much." Lily's heart softened. She had known that Ethan came from a different world, but she hadn't realized just how different. He had things most kids could only dream of, yet he seemed lonely, quiet, and unsure. She didn't say much. She simply smiled gently and nodded. "You're lucky to have something so special," she said softly. "But the most important thing is taking care of yourself and being happy." Ethan looked at her, a small glimmer of trust in his eyes. "I like being here," he said quietly. "I like that you care." Lily's heart warmed. She realized that even small acts of kindness, like noticing when someone is lonely or giving a warm meal, could make a huge difference in someone's life. She didn't care about the watch, the wealth, or the privileges Ethan might have. All that mattered was that he felt seen and cared for. Over the next few days, Lily noticed subtle changes in Ethan. He started speaking a little more, sharing small details about his life. He talked about school projects, books he enjoyed, and even small dreams he had for the future. But there were still things he didn't share: his home, his father, or the world outside the small town. Lily didn't push. She knew that trust had to grow naturally. One rainy morning, the diner was almost empty. Lily was wiping down tables when Ethan walked in, holding a drawing he had made. It was a picture of the diner, drawn in bright colors with careful attention to detail. In the corner, he had written, "Thank you, Lily," in neat letters. "This is beautiful," Lily said softly, taking the drawing. "Thank you for sharing it with me." Ethan looked a little embarrassed, but there was pride in his eyes. "I wanted you to have it," he said quietly. Lily smiled. "I'll keep it safe," she said, "and I'll always remember it." It was moments like these that reminded Lily why she had started caring for Ethan in the first place. She didn't do it for praise, reward, or recognition. She did it because it felt right. She did it because she knew that even small gestures could make someone feel valued, loved, and safe. As days turned into weeks, Lily began to notice other signs that hinted at Ethan's unique life. He had a quiet confidence, a sense of observation, and an awareness beyond his years. His manners were impeccable, and he seemed polite and respectful to everyone around him. His school supplies were always perfect, his shoes always polished, and his clothes always neat. Lily noticed these things but didn't dwell on them. She didn't care about money, social status, or the things people might assume about Ethan. What mattered to her was the child sitting in front of her, his eyes sometimes sad, sometimes curious, and always longing for someone to care. One afternoon, a regular customer, an elderly man who came to the diner for his morning coffee, leaned over to Lily quietly. "You know," he said in a low voice, "that boy's father must be very wealthy. You can tell by the way he carries himself and the things he has. But he's so lonely. That's what I feel sad about." Lily nodded politely, but she didn't respond. She didn't care about Ethan's father or his wealth. To her, Ethan was a child who needed someone to care about him, and she was determined to do that. Despite the hints and subtle clues, Lily never asked about his family. She didn't need to. She was content to be the person who noticed him, who listened to him, and who offered small comforts in his life. She knew that children sometimes had reasons for keeping things private, and she respected that. One evening, after the diner had closed and the rain had stopped, Lily found Ethan waiting outside. He had his backpack slung over one shoulder and looked up at her with a small, hesitant smile. "Are you heading home?" she asked gently. Ethan nodded. "Yeah. Thanks for today," he said softly. "You're welcome," Lily replied. "Remember, you can always come here if you need someone to talk to or just sit quietly. You're always welcome." Ethan's eyes softened. "I like being here," he said quietly. Lily smiled warmly. "I'm glad," she said. "It's nice to have you here too." Over time, Lily noticed that Ethan's happiness seemed to grow in small, subtle ways. He smiled more, laughed occasionally, and even spoke with other kids at school more confidently. The quiet, withdrawn boy who had first walked into the diner alone was slowly opening up, thanks to the gentle care of a woman who had no obligation to notice him, but did so anyway. It was a slow transformation, almost invisible to the casual observer, but it was real. Lily realized that sometimes the smallest gestures of kindness could change a life. A warm meal, a listening ear, a friendly smile. These things could matter more than money, toys, or fancy gifts. Then one day, something unexpected happened. Ethan came into the diner carrying an envelope. He looked nervous, holding it tightly in his hands. Lily noticed immediately that he seemed anxious, unsure of what to do with it. "Hi, Ethan," she said softly, smiling. "What's that?" Ethan hesitated. "It's something my dad gave me," he said quietly. "I'm supposed to give it to someone who helps me." Lily blinked, surprised. "Oh, I see," she said gently. "Well, I'm honored. But you don't have to do that. Just being here with you is enough for me." Ethan looked at her, his eyes wide with trust and a hint of worry. I want you to have it," he said softly. Lily smiled warmly, touched by the gesture. "Thank you, Ethan," she said. "I'll treasure it, but more importantly, I treasure you." It was a quiet, simple moment, but it was full of meaning. Lily realized that even without knowing the full story of Ethan's life, she had become a part of it. She had given him attention, care, and trust, and in return, he had given her small gifts of friendship and affection that meant the world to her. She didn't yet know the full truth about his family or the wealth that surrounded him. That revelation would come later. For now, what mattered was the bond they shared, the trust that had grown between them, and the understanding that even small acts of kindness could change someone's life in ways that were deeper and more lasting than anything money could buy. As Lily closed the diner that evening and walked home, she thought about Ethan. She smiled softly, feeling a warmth in her heart. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that as long as she could, she would continue to be there for him. She would continue to show kindness, listen patiently, and let him know that someone truly cared. And in those quiet moments, a small but powerful bond was forming, one that would eventually change both of their lives in ways neither of them could yet imagine. It was a bright, clear morning when something unexpected happened at the diner. Lily was arranging plates and wiping down the counter, humming softly to herself when she noticed a shiny black car pull up outside. She had seen many cars before, but something about this one caught her attention immediately. It was sleek, expensive, and out of place in their quiet little town. The driver stepped out first, a professional-looking man in a crisp suit, holding the door for another person who stepped out behind him. The second figure was Ethan's father. Lily froze for a moment, unsure what to think. The man was tall, well-dressed, and carried himself with a confidence that filled the space around him. He looked around the diner, not in a hurry, just observing, and then his eyes landed on Ethan. Ethan, sitting at his usual table, stiffened. His small hands gripped the edge of the table, and for a moment, Lily could see a flicker of fear mixed with uncertainty. He looked up at the man hesitantly, and the man's face softened as he approached. "Ethan," he said gently, kneeling slightly so he could speak at the boy's level. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." Ethan shook his head. He looked at Lily as if seeking reassurance. Lily smiled warmly, her presence steadying him. "You're not disturbing anything," she said softly. "It's nice to see him with you." The man nodded, then turned to Lily. "I want to thank you," he said sincerely, "for looking after my son, for being kind to him when I haven't been able to be there as much as I should." Lily blinked, stunned. She hadn't realized that the man standing before her was Ethan's father, the very person whose presence had always seemed distant and mysterious in the boy's life. She felt a mixture of awe, surprise, and a little nervousness. It's no problem," she said softly. I wanted him to feel cared for." The man smiled gently. "And you've done more than I could have ever asked. Ethan talks about you a lot. You've made a difference in his life that I can't put into words." Ethan shifted in his seat, a small smile forming on his lips. He looked between Lily and his father, unsure of how to respond. Lily reached over and patted his hand lightly, giving him silent encouragement. "You've been very kind to him," the man continued. "I can see how much he trusts you. That means the world to me." Lily's heart felt full. She realized that the small acts of kindness she had offered, sharing warm meals, helping with homework, listening patiently, and simply being there, had mattered more than she had ever imagined. She had not been doing it for recognition, but now, seeing the gratitude in the father's eyes, she understood the impact of her actions. For a moment, there was silence in the diner, the kind of quiet that feels heavy with meaning. Ethan's father looked around, taking in the simple, cozy environment of the diner, and then turned back to Lily. "I'd like to know you better," he said. "Not as a wealthy man, not as someone with money, but as the person who has been a constant presence in my son's life. If it's all right with you, I'd like to talk, maybe even have you join us for lunch sometime." Lily felt a mixture of emotions. She had never imagined being noticed by someone so important, someone so wealthy. But more than that, she felt honored to be recognized for her genuine care for Ethan. She nodded softly. I'd like that," she said quietly. Ethan, sensing the tension and the shift in the air, finally spoke. "Lily, thanks for everything," he said softly, his small voice filled with sincerity. "You're welcome, Ethan," Lily replied, smiling warmly. "And I'll always be here for you." The man, Ethan's father, smiled, a mixture of relief and gratitude on his face. "It's clear that you've become an important part of his life," he said. "And I want to make sure you're taken care of as well. You've helped my son in ways I couldn't, and I'd like to offer you some support. Nothing extravagant, just enough to make life a little easier for you." Lily blinked, unsure how to respond. She had never cared about money or status. Her focus had always been on helping Ethan, not receiving anything in return. But she also understood that this gesture was his way of acknowledging her kindness and the impact she had on his son's life. "That's very kind of you," she said softly, "but I don't need anything. I've been happy just being able to help him." The man shook his head gently. "It's not about needing it. It's about acknowledging the difference you've made. You've given him attention, care, and love, things that money can't buy. And I want to give you something in return, not as payment, but as appreciation." Lily felt a lump in her throat. She had never expected recognition or reward. All she had wanted was to make Ethan feel valued and seen. Now, standing face to face with his father, she realized that her small acts had not gone unnoticed. Ethan watched the exchange quietly, a small sense of relief and happiness in his eyes. For years he had felt lonely despite having everything money could buy. And now seeing the two people who cared for him, Lily and his father, interact with genuine respect and gratitude, he felt a warmth in his heart that he had never known before. Over the next few days, Ethan's father became more present. He didn't overwhelm the boy with gifts or luxuries, but he made a sincere effort to be involved in Ethan's life. And Lily remained by his side, offering the steady support and kindness that had always made the boy feel safe. Lily's life began to change too. She still worked at the diner, but the knowledge that her efforts had been noticed gave her a quiet confidence. She began to see that kindness, patience, and empathy could create meaningful connections that went beyond social or economic boundaries. One afternoon, as Lily prepared a warm meal for Ethan, she reflected on everything that had happened. She realized that her small gestures, checking in on him, offering a listening ear and providing comfort, had created a bridge between two very different worlds. She hadn't known who his father was or the life he led, but she had made a real, tangible difference in the boy's life, and in doing so, she had touched lives far beyond what she had imagined. Ethan, sitting at his usual table, smiled as he watched Lily move around the diner. For him, the presence of someone who truly cared was more valuable than anything money could provide. The gift of kindness, attention, and genuine care had filled a gap in his heart that no wealth or luxury could ever reach. And for Lily, the realization that she had been able to impact a life so profoundly, without expectation of reward, was both humbling and empowering. She understood that her actions, no matter how small, had consequences far beyond what she could see. That day, as the sun set over the small town and the diner glowed warmly in the evening light, Lily, Ethan, and his father shared a quiet moment together. There were no grand speeches, no extravagant gestures, just a simple, honest connection between people who had found each other in unexpected ways. It was a moment that would stay with Lily forever. A moment that reminded her that the smallest acts of kindness, given with a genuine heart, could change lives in ways that mattered more than anything else. And in that quiet diner, a new chapter began, not just for Ethan, but for Lily as well. Their lives were intertwined now, bound by trust, care, and the simple, powerful truth that human connection is priceless. After the revelation of Ethan's father being one of the wealthiest men alive, life began to change for both Ethan and Lily, but it was not sudden or dramatic. The change was gentle, quiet, and heartfelt. Lily continued her work at the diner, but now she moved through the space with a quiet confidence, knowing that her acts of kindness had been seen and appreciated. She didn't feel the need to seek reward or recognition. The knowledge that she had positively affected a child's life was reward enough. Ethan, on the other hand, was slowly learning how to live in a world where wealth existed, but could no longer fill the emptiness he had felt before. His father made an effort to be more present, to spend time with him without imposing or overwhelming. But it was Lily who remained the steady presence, the constant figure in his life who gave him attention, care, and understanding without conditions. One afternoon, Lily was arranging the counter when Ethan walked in with a small backpack slung over his shoulder. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "Hi, Lily," he called softly. "Hey, Ethan," she replied warmly. "How was school today?" Ethan shrugged but smiled. "It was okay. I learned something new today." Lily nodded, smiling. "That's great. Do you want to tell me about it while you have a snack?" Ethan nodded eagerly. Lily brought him his favorite, a small slice of pie and a warm chocolate milk. They sat together in the quiet diner, talking about school, friends, and small adventures. Lily listened patiently, offering encouragement, celebrating his successes and helping him through frustrations. In the weeks that followed, Lily noticed a shift in Ethan. He was more confident, more cheerful, and more willing to share his thoughts and dreams. He had begun to smile genuinely, to laugh freely, and to enjoy the simple pleasures of life in a way he had never done before. And while his father tried to spend more time with him, it was Lily who remained the anchor, the person who made him feel secure, understood, and valued. One afternoon, Ethan handed Lily a small envelope. She opened it carefully and found a letter inside, written in neat handwriting. It was from his father, expressing gratitude for everything she had done for Ethan. He wrote about how he had finally realized the importance of emotional presence, how her patience and care had filled a gap that wealth could never fill, and how deeply he appreciated her for being there for his son. Lily felt a lump in her throat. She had never expected recognition, but the sincerity of the letter touched her deeply. She folded it carefully and kept it safe, a reminder of the impact her simple acts of kindness had made. Ethan watched her quietly. "See?" he said softly. "Even my dad thinks you're amazing." Lily smiled, ruffling his hair gently. "I don't do it for praise," she said softly. "I just wanted to help, and seeing you happy is more than enough." Over time, her life began to improve in small, meaningful ways. With the support of Ethan's father, she was able to pay off some debts, improve her apartment, and even take a few classes she had always wanted to attend. But more importantly, she continued to work at the diner because it was where she felt connected, where she could continue to support Ethan, and where she could keep making small differences in people's lives. Ethan, too, was thriving. He was excelling at school, making new friends and developing interests beyond what his wealth alone could provide. He had learned that kindness, patience, and genuine care mattered more than money, and he carried the lessons he had learned from Lily into his everyday life. One rainy evening, Lily stayed late at the diner to finish cleaning. Ethan was sitting quietly at his usual table, drawing in a notebook. She watched him for a moment, noticing how calm and content he looked. The boy who had once been lonely and withdrawn now radiated a quiet confidence. "You're doing really well," she said softly, kneeling to speak to him. Ethan looked up and smiled. "Thanks, Lily, you helped me a lot." More than anyone else, Lily felt her heart swell. "I'm proud of you, Ethan," she said gently, "and I'll always be here if you need me." It was in these quiet, everyday moments that the real magic happened. No grand gestures, no wealth, no fame, just two people connected by trust, care, and genuine kindness. Lily had given Ethan something priceless, the knowledge that he mattered, that he was seen, and that someone truly cared about him. And in return, Ethan had given Lily a sense of purpose and fulfillment that no amount of money or status could ever provide. The bond between them remained unshakable, and even Ethan's father respected it. He never tried to replace Lily or impose his own ways of showing care. Instead, he supported the relationship, understanding that the foundation of Ethan's emotional well-being had been built through her patient kindness. One sunny afternoon, the three of them sat together in the diner. Ethan had drawn another picture, this time of all three of them smiling under the bright sun. Lily admired it, placing it on the counter where everyone could see. "This is beautiful," she said softly. "You've captured us perfectly." Ethan's father nodded, smiling. "You've made a real difference in his life, Lily, and for that we are both grateful." Lily smiled warmly, feeling a quiet satisfaction that went far beyond material reward. She realized that her small, consistent acts of care had changed lives, not through wealth or power, but through love, attention, and patience. Over the following months, Lily continued to live her life with purpose and kindness. She maintained her work at the diner, continued supporting Ethan, and began mentoring other children in the community who needed guidance and care. Her days were full, not because of wealth or luxury, but because of meaningful connections and the joy of helping others. Ethan grew stronger, happier, and more confident. He learned that being surrounded by love, kindness, and attention was far more valuable than material possessions. And he knew that Lily would always be there for him, a guiding light in a world that had once felt lonely and confusing. Years later, when people in the town remembered the small diner on the edge of town, they didn't just think of the food or the cozy atmosphere. They remembered Lily, the kind-hearted waitress who had quietly changed the life of a lonely boy, who had shown that even small acts of care could create a ripple effect that transformed lives. And Ethan, now older, often thought about those rainy afternoons, the warm meals, the patient guidance, and the gentle encouragement that had shaped him. He never forgot Lily, the woman who had seen him, cared for him, and taught him that love and kindness mattered more than anything else in the world. In the end, their lives were forever intertwined. Lily continued to help and inspire, Ethan continued to grow and thrive, and even his father learned the true value of presence, attention, and genuine care. The wealth he possessed could not have created the same impact that Lily's simple kindness had. It was a story of quiet triumph, of human connection, and of the power of small, consistent acts of love. A story that reminded everyone that no matter where someone comes from, or what they have, what they need most is care, attention, and genuine kindness. And in that small diner, the legacy of love and empathy lived on, changing lives in ways that money never could, and teaching the world that the smallest gestures can make the biggest difference.